Are you looking for some carpeting plants that don't need CO2 that are easy to keep? Well, today I'm going to give you a list of 10 aquarium carpeting plants that will never need CO2. So the first plant on this list are cryptocorynes. Now these plants come in a lot of different forms. There's the red ones, there's the classical green ones. In my opinion, they're one of the most beautiful looking aquarium plants ever, and they also make great carpeting plants. If you grow them well, they will replicate very quickly. They're gonna grow a lot, and soon you could just propagate them. They're gonna grow all over the place, and your aquarium's gonna get filled with them. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that they are very afraid of algae, so make sure to control algae if you have those in your tank, because once algae hits, they could take down these plants super quickly. Crypts can sometimes also get pretty tall, so you're gonna have to trim them regularly if they get taller than you expect. The next plant on this list is pearlweed. Pearlweed is a super bulletproof plant. It's so hardy, and it could grow in just about any environment. So the way I make them carpet is I plant them in sideways, because then there's a lot more new shoots that could potentially come up. You could also just get a lot of snippets of these plants and just plant them all over the place. They're gonna cover the floor in no time. They're super fast, super hardy. In a month or two, you're gonna be super busy trimming all the plants. So the way you trim these guys is really simple. All you need is a scissor or something and just cut off the pieces. There's no crown, there's no nothing that you need to avoid. You just cut off the top and then that will trim them. These guys are also stem plants, so they don't need any special type of substrate. If you want them to grow faster, then I recommend two things. One is the lighting. You could turn on the lighting for more hours a day or just increase the intensity. That's going to cause the pearlweed to grow so much faster. And also, if it's still not meeting your expectations, you can add some liquid fertilizers. That's also going to help add a lot of minerals into the water and help them grow. The third plant on this list is Monte Carlo. You've probably heard of this plant at one point or another, and it's one of the most common carpeting plants. It's very commonly used in aquascapes, so if you watch aquascaping channels like Green Aqua or George Farmer, they use this plant a lot, and it does create a really nice carpet. These plants can grow without substrate. A lot of people grow it on wood or rocks. They just put it on there, and over time the moss will cover itself over the thing they're attached to, and they grow kind of like a vine, like those vineyards you see. It just over time they attach themselves and they just keep growing. For them to grow without CO2, they do prefer highlighting. It gives them kind of like the energy to keep propagating and keep growing, keep spreading. So moderate to highlighting will be very beneficial for these plants. Number 4 on the list is Dwarf Sagittaria, more commonly known as Dwarf Sag. Dwarf Sag is a very hardy plant, super versatile. It's pretty similar to Jungle Val. If you've kept Jungle Val before, the only difference is that Dwarf Sag is a lot smaller and they don't get as tall. These plants propagate by sending out white runners, so basically near their roots you're gonna send out these white thingies that are just gonna spread and then grow a new plant out of it, and it's gonna spread again, and that's how they're gonna cover the whole bottom of your tank if they get enough nutrients. But they don't need CO2, they do appreciate a deep substrate with lots of fertilizers, liquid fertilizers, and good amounts of lighting. You could also pinch off the runners and then relocate them. That way you could sort of control where they're growing at. You're going to be amazed by the way they send out runners to propagate. It's pretty cool to watch. As long as you have good lighting, a deep substrate, they're going to spread really fast. The next carpeting plant is one that I haven't seen a lot of people use, and that is Java moss. For some reason, not a lot of people do it. I used to have a Java moss carpet in this tank right here, then I got rid of it to put it somewhere else. Java moss is incredibly easy. There's no special thing you need to care about this. You don't need a deep substrate, you don't really need anything special. Just need water and maybe some liquid fertilizer for them to grow fast. These guys are gonna carpet real quick. Now the reason why a lot of people might not have this is because they could grow in many different directions. Like they might not just carpet, they might grow upwards towards the light. You might have to trim them pretty often and make sure that they grow in place. These plants, they can grow pretty messy sometimes. I've had lots of experience where they just grow completely out of control. So get your trimming scissors ready. Moving on, up next we have dwarf hairgrass. This is another plant that needs plenty of light to grow. It's one of those plants that just can't photosynthesize, can't grow in shaded places, so make sure you put them out in open tanks that the lights can just shine on through them. They can tolerate a pretty wide range of temperatures from 50 degrees to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, so temperature is not something you would really worry about. It's pretty hardy in general, does not need CO2. I would recommend trimming them every once in a while because it encourages them to grow runners and propagate. These guys propagate just like the dwarf sage by sending out runners. So having this plant in your tank is basically just having a green carpet. It's super similar to grass, so if you appreciate a nice green lawn, then you will love this plant. The 7th plant on this list is Glossoelitinoides. It can be a great addition to your tank. It's gonna have lots of tiny roots that just extend down from the plant and just anchor itself to the substrate. I recommend using a high output LED light and some nutrient rich fertilizers. It's also best if you have a nutrient rich substrate. You'll need to fertilize your Glosso regularly. I recommend using a liquid fertilizer that is high in nitrogen and iron. You can also add root tabs to the substrate to add supplements to its growth. This plant is pretty low maintenance. You will need to trim it back occasionally to keep it looking its best. And overall, it's a very unique plant and a good choice to try out. The 8th plant on this list is pennywort. Pennywort is a nice, interesting looking carpeting plant, and it's not the usual ones you see. It kind of looks like a shamrock to me. These plants are very fast growing. They grow up to 2 inches per week, which means you'll have a lush carpet in no time. Pennywort doesn't require a lot of special care. It could tolerate a wide range of water conditions, and it doesn't need a lot of light. It does appreciate something to attach itself to as well as a good substrate. These plants will form a nice carpet, and with how they look, they're gonna really stand out. Fun fact, pennywort could actually grow out of water, so if you have a paludarium, this plant is definitely worth considering. Pennywort is a pretty low temperature plant if you want to grow it well. A low temperature for these guys, I would recommend 65 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit, which is around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. For fertilization, they feed mainly from the water column, so a liquid fertilizer would be much more beneficial than root tabs. The 9th carpeting plant on this list is Christmas moss. Christmas moss is very similar to Java moss. The difference is that the leaves on Christmas moss resemble more like the leaves on a Christmas tree, hence they're named Christmas moss. Another difference is that the leaves tend to grow more orderly instead of messy like Java fern, so if you don't want to deal with the Java fern growing all over the place, maybe consider getting this plant, especially with creating a carpet and even using it for aquascaping. Unlike Java moss, however, Christmas moss tends to grow better in areas with lots of light, so they prefer brighter setups. They also grow slightly slower and less compact. Last thing to keep in mind, well, they need really good water quality. Lack of nutrients, extreme pH, sudden water parameter change, those are all gonna really hurt this plant. So if you don't want a plant that's super sensitive, like Christmas moss, then maybe get Java moss. The benefit of Christmas moss is that it grows better, but it's harder to keep. Finally, now at plant number 10, we have S. repens. S. repens is a small plant with bright green leaves. The leaves are oval shaped and the plant can grow to about 6 inches tall. S. repens is super low maintenance. It can thrive in a variety of conditions with a slightly acidic pH of 6.0 to 7.0. The temperature, they are not sensitive. The usual range of 70 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit will do great for them. Keep in mind that these plants are often sold as tissue cultures, which means that they are laboratory grown, so they might undergo a transition once you put them in your aquarium, because in the labs they're grown immersed, while in your aquariums they are fully submerged in the water. But that's when you grow a tissue culture plant. If you don't, then they will grow perfectly. In general, S. repens is very easy to care for. It's a great plant choice for foregrounds and midgrounds and could be used to create a lush, natural look in your tank. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.